this project, we will explain what is an exponential function, its rules and implications, and how to graph it. Then, based on that, we will explain the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, its consequences, and how it is related to exponential growth. At last, we will make a detailed summary of all the information that we researched and explained in this project, facts about nuclear disasters and weapons, how did we work, and evidence of our teamwork. Exponential function equals to y equals a times b to the x power, where a equals to the initial number, and it has to be a real positive number. The b equals to a real positive number greater than 1, and the x equals to the constant value that you give it in the x-axis.
The domain is all real numbers, and the range is all positive, from 0, higher than 0, it never is 0, okay? It is a one-to-one function, and the graph asymptote is a horizontal line, and the inverse function of this is a logarithm function.
Example of an exponential equation would be y equals to 2 to the x power. So the only thing that we have to do is to substitute x with any value. So starting by putting x as equal to 0, it will be 1. So we just start plotting the dots in the equation. So 2 to the first power, it will be 1 times 2. Then 2 to the second power, 2 times 2, 4. To the third power, 2 times 2, 4. Times 2, 8. So 3, and you click in number 8. You can also substitute values in negative. So to the negative 1 will be 1/2. And then when we have the points, you only have to connect them with a line.
With the graph that the asymptote is horizontal and the x-axis, it will never touch 0. So that's why in the range we will put that. We'll put it like this because it goes all the way up, but it will never touch the 0. And the domain is pretty simple. As you can see, it's all the numbers. All of them. So we put it like this. And that's how you know the domain and range of this function.
The Chernobyl disaster was in April 16, 1986, after 1 in the morning. The Chernobyl disaster is the most serious accident in the history of the nuclear industry. Everything happened in an hour. In the Block 4, all the decisions that 3 people will make will decide what was going to happen. It was a nuclear explosion in which many people died. There were many diseases, left too many radioactive materials, and a great contamination. There are currently areas close to the disaster that are classified as contaminated with radioactive materials. This disaster was caused by bad calculations. Staff was not adequately trained.
Exponential decay could be easily explained and understood with the real-life example of a simple soccer tournament. Suppose 20 teams of young men want to play soccer, and so they organize a tournament in which there will be only one winner. First, there will be 10 matches because there are 20 teams and a match is between 2 teams. After obtaining the results of who won and who lost, the teams that lost will be out of the tournament. After this, only 10 teams will remain. These 10 teams will engage in another 5 matches now that the number of teams has been cut to half of the original number. Each time matches are played, the number of teams will drop to half the previous number. This is a clear example of exponential decay. Exponential growth is everywhere. Something as common as population growth is a very good example of exponential growth. Humans, animals, and pretty much every living thing grows in population throughout time, or sometimes lowers, to an exponential rate. For example, the population of bunnies in a valley increases by 6% each year. This would continue to grow exponentially throughout the years, and exponential growth could be seen.
In conclusion, the exponential growth is the increase of a number at a constantly growing rate. The basic formula is fx equals a, which is equal to the initial amount and it is always a real number, and b, which is the constant that equals to any real number greater than 1, to the x, which is whatever value you give it. The reference point is when you substitute x with 0. This will create normally 1 unless there is a c which will elevate it in the graph. And the main characteristics are the rate of growth starts to slow and increases. The domain is all real numbers. The range is all positive and real numbers greater than 0. It is a one-to-one function. The inverse function is a logarithm function actually. The exponential decay is when a quantity decreases at a rate proportional to a current value. Some pros of using nuclear power generating are that it emits low amounts of carbon dioxide, which is very harmful to the environment, and many greenhouse gases also. And the contribution of nuclear power plants to global warming is little. This technology is already available, and some cons are radioactive waste, which will be around much longer than, and many things actually, many monuments also. It is currently an unsolved issue, but there are still anyway some work around it. It is very extremely dangerous, and it has to be in a high security standard, and even though accidents can still happen. Also, it is, well, as many things, it is impossible to build a 100% secure nuclear power plant, but the probability of failure is actually quite low, lower than ever before actually. Nuclear energy is very clean, cleaner than fossil fuels, but not cleaner than renewable energy like solar energy or hydroelectric energy. Those are very good. As I said before, nuclear plants and facilities release two wastes. It is steam and nuclear waste, which is very radioactive and not environmentally friendly. So this is why nuclear facilities have to make containers, specialized and very expensive, for it not to cause an environmental disaster like the one that happened in Chernobyl. Now my classmate will talk about it more in detail.
In Mexico, there is a nuclear energy plant located in Punta Limón, Veracruz. It is very near to the Gulf, so we didn't think it's safe because of the many hurricanes that threaten the state and the area. We agreed with the fact that there's a nuclear energy plant in Mexico. Despite its flaws, nuclear energy is more reliable and proficient than fossil fuels. We think that the Chernobyl 1986 nuclear disaster have been prevented with periodic checkups of the system and proper maintenance, as well as proper procedures to act in the case of accidents. There wasn't any way to stop the radiation spread and its pollution, just decrease the amount going out. The damage was already done when it exploded. We don't think that the radioactive pollution generated by disaster reached Mexico, since most of the pollution fell on Europe and the winds carry small dosage of particles to the Arctic area. Some environmental consequences of Chernobyl disaster were radionuclides deposited most heavily on lawns, parks, street roads, town squares, yielding roofs and walls. Under dry conditions, trees, bushes, lawns and roofs initially had the greatest levels. It produced many diseases, leaving many radioactive materials and contamination. Substantial reduction in the transfer of radionuclides to vegetation and animals in intensive agricultural systems. Consequences of other nuclear disasters and use of nuclear weapons are cause acute radiation syndrome, providing skin rashes, vomiting and diarrhea, to coma and death. Damages in DNA, especially as it assembles in dividing cells. Different types of cancer, devastation of world's climate and ecosystems, causing damage lasting more than a decade, create climatic anomalies unpresentable. Ozone layer will be adapted, depleted from 40% to 70%. We think that these consequences are very alarming since we already had a lot of problems in our actual world, and adding these consequences, things just get worse. There are also logical effects since working with nuclear energy is dangerous for everyone. Two solutions will be: the people working there must receive adequate instructions, register every action, communicate with other controllers, confirm decisions, etc. By working together, we felt fine. We think we did a great job, although it was difficult to work since we never met and we didn't know each other. Other difficulty was that some things we left them until the end, and that didn't was favorable for the project.